In the second episode of Loner, in Another World, as Haruka is grinning like a complete fool at the thought of mastering this isekai world all by himself, his perception skill alerts him of a group of people approaching him. It's the delinquents. Haruka quickly hides away from them by jumping into a bush, but one of the delinquents, who appears to be the leader of the bunch, hears this and asks his lackeys if they heard something as well. The leader of the delinquents then starts approaching the exact bush where Haruka had hidden himself. The suspense is through the roof at this point when suddenly a little bunny pops out of the bush. While the delinquents laugh at what just happened and start to move away, Haruka, who had almost peed his pants, takes a huge sigh of relief. The delinquents sit near a lake, and Haruka follows them while staying hidden in order to learn what they are planning. Haruka thought he might learn something useful from this risky eavesdropping, but he is reminded very quickly why the group are a bunch of delinquents, as all they can seem to talk about are the pretty girls of their class. Haruka reassures himself about the safety of the girls from these creepy losers by remembering the class rep is also with them, and that she's a superhero who has been stopping troublemakers since they were in elementary school. Haruka doesn't shy away from letting his immense admiration of the class rep slip out. The leader of the delinquents then announces they ought to head back now, and the group starts moving upstream. Haruka sees this and figures that the whole class is probably upstream. Haruka then heads back to his sad, lonely bachelor pad when he sees that his loner level went up to level 2 and has the nerve to be shocked at this too. Haruka asks himself if it is because he avoided his classmates. Yes, it is Haruka. Haruka figures that he is still a level 3 because of the low level of his Master of None and Dummy skills. Haruka understands that the Master of None skill is like a jack of all trades, but a Master of None skill, which means he won't be able to master one thing completely, but will still be able to do a bunch of things decently, but unsure about whether the dummy skill makes him some kind of puppet or just a useless moron. Haruka decides to eat his troubles away like any logical person would. Although, sick of mushrooms, Haruka wishes he had proper meat or even fish for once. It's day 7 now. Haruka is trying to sleep, but loud noises from the outside keep interrupting him. Thinking it is the delinquents again, Haruka goes out to investigate when he finds out it's the nerds engaged in battle with a gob of goblins. Haruka thinks about helping them out, but finds out they have far superior classes than him, while he is the only one who got the neat class. Seeing this reminds Haruka of his class back in the human world, where everyone was either an amazing athlete or an ace student, while average Haruka would wonder how he even got in there. Haruka leaves the nerds trusting they will be fine, since being nerds equals good at isekai stuff. Haruka's perception skill goes off suddenly, and he notices a couple of goblins planning to attack the nerds from behind their back. Because the nerds were nice to him back in school, Haruka decides to lend them a hand. Haruka springs out of a bush and makes quick work of the goblins with his swift stick attack. Haruka takes the nerds back to his cave while they thank him for saving them. Haruka had forgotten how to take a compliment properly after having been a loner for so long. The nerds marvel at the neat setup Haruka had managed to make. One of the nerds, who looks as if he had eaten another nerd, asks if Haruka had done this all by himself, unknowingly taunting him and his loner lifestyle. Haruka asks them why they were by themselves, and where are the others when the nerds reveal they were on the run. Shocked to hear this, upon his asking, the nerds tell Haruka what had happened. The whole class except Haruka had been transported to the forest. Confused and bewildered about what was happening and what they should do, the class starting panicking. The class rep tried to calm them down when a big gob of goblins shows up behind her. This, of course, panics the ever-calm class rep as well, which Haruka, who is passing remarks while the story goes on, thinks is understandable. While some students start crying and the delinquents cower like chickens, the nerds, finally in their element, get to action, and like bona fide heroes, they start taking the goblins out with ease. Seeing this, the jocks get inspired and jump in as well, and the two groups make short work of the goblins in no time. The class rep leads the class to a riverside clearing after gaining her rationality back. The nerds use their nerd knowledge and guide everyone in setting up camp. The class rep puts everyone to work with different tasks, and everything seems to be going smoothly for a bit, but then starting off with the gal group, followed by the delinquents. A large portion of the class refused to do any more chores and dumped it all on the nerds. And just like that, everything started falling apart. The nerds and a handful of other students continued doing the work, while the rest lazed around complaining about being bored. To which Haruka remarks with frustration, they should work if they're bored. The nerd with the glasses, who being the only one with them and could thus safely be considered their leader, remembers he saw the delinquents pick up the charm and puppeteer skills back in the White Room, and that this could prove to be bad news. The nerds had been leveling up in order to stand up to these skills. The nerds kept a close eye on the delinquents as they also leveled up and learned about their devious harem plan. The nerds inform the class rep, who decides to level up herself as a result. The delinquents were able to use these skills just a few days later and catch the class rep all by herself. Like wolves, they begin to initiate their plans starting with her, but are all down and out just moments later, and their devious skills get sealed by the nerds. They later get exposed, and after some verbal thrashing by the gals worse than actual physical thrashing, the delinquents run away. But while everything seems okay again, the delinquents return and destroy the camp. The nerds get blamed for everything, even though they actually did almost everything regarding building the campsite and saved the girls from the delinquents' plans. While the class rep and a few others come to their defense, the nerds have to leave the campsite. Touched by their sad story, Haruka offers them a feast for their troubles. Although it's just a variety of mushrooms, having spent the next day with the nerds as well, Haruka thinks to himself, not being a loner isn't bad sometimes. As the nerds leave for a town downriver to get their adventurer life started, they invite Haruka to join them and tell him he's the closest to their group in the whole class. Haruka agrees but declines their invitation dramatically, thinking he would only hold them back with his cursed set of stats. Haruka goes to check up on the others, especially the class rep, but encounters a kobold on his way and manages to beat it after getting bitten and screaming like a girl. After some time, he reaches the campsite's location only to find it empty when immediately his enemy detection skill goes off and he sees footsteps leading across the river. Haruka makes eye contact with who they belong to and decides to run back instead of dealing with them. The gals start chasing after him and ask him to stop with a please followed by it, which stops Haruka in his tracks, thinking he perhaps misheard. They ask him about Oda's herd, who Haruka figures are the nerds. He asks why they were looking for them too, which they say to apologize to them. This completely confuses Haruka, because apologizing gals isn't something he thought he'd live to see, but they tell him they realize the nerds had kept them alive thus far. Haruka tells them they couldn't catch up to the nerds again, but they persist. Haruka then tests their conviction and if they really mean it, but the gals start crying and start begging him to teach them everything they need to know to get to Oda and the nerds so they could apologize. Startled by what's happening, Haruka uses the word yeah, and this activates his subjugate skill. Under his spell, the gals start walking behind Haruka like zombies. Haruka is baffled by this skill and the crazy stuff it makes them do. As trying to offer a healing potion to one of the gals backfires, Haruka remembers the class rep, who appears out of nowhere then. She has to scream at his face to make notice she's there. Before the episode ends, we see the delinquents plotting their schemes about attacking the girls again and getting rid of those in the way first. Stay connected, like and subscribe for more fun recaps on one and only Endless Recaps.